Hello, my name is John Davis again, and we are in the Radio Shack, and this is the first edition of my radio program called In the Radio Shack. Right now I want to talk to you a little bit about the North American Shortwave Association. It is the perfect place to find out all the schedules, information about frequencies and times of shortwave radio broadcasters around the world. You can find out information on them on the internet, or you can contact Bill Oliver at Levittown, Pennsylvania, 45 Wildflower Road, 19057. The neat thing about the journal, which is the monthly publication, there is a listener's notebook that includes all kinds of information about different countries that listeners have listened to recently, and they tell some more in-depth information than what you get in a regular listing. The other part of the NASWA journal is the short form listings of information sent into NASWA by the listeners. For example, at 9435 kilohertz, I heard North Korea, the voice of Korea, at 1623 to 1626, with an ID at 1626. This is one of the best signals I've heard from them for an awfully long time. NASWA also has an internet presence. Man, once you join NASWA, you can get into their website and gain all kinds of additional information about radio stations that are not listed in the journal. Now, about some of my equipment. I showed you the large 687-foot vertical array, horizontal array last time, and this is I have the antenna feed that comes out here, but I'm not using it tonight. I'm using my 42-foot Windom that's inside in the attic. I'm using this antenna when I don't want to take up the time to set up the long wire. As you can see, that most of my radios are either military or they're commercial grade equipment, and I've been collecting these radios since about 1971. All of these radios work perfectly. These are tube type receivers, and they're good at digging out stations where other stations are close by because they have a 4 kilohertz selectivity filter. The receivers like this have 6 kilohertz filters, and they don't quite dig out the shortwave stations one piled on top of another like the R398s do. The thing about this receiver and the other solid state receivers, they have better sensitivity. So if you have to hear a radio station that's a very, very weak signal, this is the kind of receiver you want to use. And this is one of my antenna couplers. And then over here are other receivers. As time goes on, we'll see more and more about them. I produce, on a monthly basis, a shortwave radio intercept broadcaster's broadcast guide. It's used and developed by me for people who are mainly interested in shortwave radio broadcast signals. For example, 4835 kilohertz is Australia. Radio Australia, the Northern Territories shortwave service. I heard it from 1327 to 1335. But I had the regular Radio Australia ID at 1330 and 1335. The big story of the day that there was a massive snowstorm in the eastern part of the United States, and the whole East Coast was digging out from the pasting they got. I heard this broadcast on 1/24/2016. I'm not going to give all the listings because that would just take too much time. There's all kinds of other stations that you can listen to around the world. You don't need all this big expensive equipment to hear the world. I hear plenty of stations on my little Kato 1103. If you like to hear Eastern European news, listen to Radio Romania International on 7325 kilohertz from 116. This is when I heard it, from 116 to 124. With an ID at 124. They had a pretty good signal. I won't go much into that but they were talking about winter sports in the northern part of Romania, and it sounded like a really neat place to go if you wanted to do mountain climbing, skiing, winter backpacking, or hiking. 9410 kilohertz. I heard Thailand, the British Broadcasting Corporation, from 0038 to 0100 with an ID of 0059. I was surprised at this. It had sort of a noisy, weak signal because I was using the 5050A and the 687-foot horizontal array antenna, which is the big one. I should have had more signal, but I guess the atmospheric conditions were just not up to it. Another station that you can fairly readily hear over shortwave is All India Radio. I was listening on 11,670 kilohertz at 2152 to 2209, and they had numerous IDs, and I had an extremely good signal. Almost anybody could hear this station at this time. I heard this station using one of my R391 receivers with the 42-foot Wyndham antenna. Another easy station in here is Ascension Island, the BBC, on 12,095 kilohertz. I listened in from 2138 to 2150, and I heard a program they were talking about stimulates the different centers of the brain. It was sort of interesting, but not really. On 3320 kilohertz, I heard South Africa Radio Sonder, GRENESE, from 328 to 333 with a tentative ID. And it was in the African language, so I had to do a verification of this station. You can either do it by the World Radio TV Handbook or by the information that's on the internet. I just don't listen to shortwave radio broadcasters. I listen to weather stations and airplane conversations with towers. But one of the stations I really like to hear on a regular basis is 3413 kilohertz. It's Ireland. It's Shannon Volmet. Now it's because I used a little portable radio with a telescoping antenna and a BFO, I wasn't able to get to the true frequency. So the true frequency is 3414 kilohertz in single sideband. But I had to use the BFO on a portable radio, and so it's a little off in frequency. Another station that's nice listening to is Gander Radio. It's up in Newfoundland in Canada, and again I was listening to this with a Kato 1103 portable receiver with a telescoping antenna and a BFO. I was listening to it from 521 to 525. There are a lot of stations that you hear them and you have to sort of figure out who they are. On 6200 kilohertz, I tuned in to China XIZANG People's Broadcasting System from 1234 to 1239 with a tentative ID by the internet. The program was in Chinese, and I have no real idea of where the station was located, except that it was in the hinterlands of China. Another station I listen to from time to time is Australia VMC. It's a single sideband station on 6507 kilohertz. I use it here to listen to coastal weather off the coast of Australia. There's all kinds of stations that I listen to, but one station that I logged on 2.1 was on 8113 kilohertz, and it was an Australian weather station, VMW, in the upper sideband mode. I listened from 1320 to 1324, and I heard two distinct IDs. It was fairly clear, and so I was able to listen with more ease than at other times. Now, the Voice of America broadcasts from many different locations, but every once in a while they get tangled up with another radio station. So on 9530 kilohertz, I was listening to the Voice of America from the Philippines and Radio Transmundial from Brazil. you could just make out just the littlest bit of information. One was in Chinese, one was in Portuguese. But for the average person, you can't understand a word that they said. Again, the only way I could ID these stations was to go to the internet. I like to listen to the stations that a lot of people don't hear. So on 735 kilohertz, I listened to Tanzania. They had a signal from the Zanzibar Broadcasting Corporation. Zanzibar, that area is an autonomous region under Tanzania. I heard them from 2037 to 2055 with a tentative ID on the internet. I used the 42-foot Wyndham antenna and the 687-foot antenna, so I had a total antenna length of 729 feet. If you go to 11,985 kilohertz, you'll tune to Radio Algerine, but it's broadcast from France. And I heard their transmission from 1801 to 1806 with a tentative ID from the internet. Since they were speaking in Arabic, I really didn't understand anything that they were saying. Another radio station that I find interesting in hunting down is Oman, Radio Sultanate of Oman, on 15,140 kilohertz. I heard them. I intercepted their station from 1831 to 1836 on February 2nd. I didn't listen to the station too long because it was in Arabic. The receiver I used was a R390A, which is like this receiver. And I used the long wire outside antenna that we saw just a while back. Madagascar, I listened to Adventist World Radio from them at 1904 to 1907 on 15,480 kilohertz. It was a tentative idea because it was in Arabic. You go to the internet and you can find sources that will tell exactly what frequency, what time, what station and language you have. Now, Santa Maria Galleria, which is part of the Vatican, I listened to the Voice of America broadcast from there on 15,730 kilohertz from 1920 to 1922. The broadcast wasn't in French, so my wife Sandra went to the internet to figure out the details. This reception was done with my 1000A receiver and the 16-foot in-fed antenna. The newsletter. It's free for anyone who requests it over the internet. We don't have any problem with adding someone to the listing. As I said, it's free. The email address is intheradioshack@hotmail.com. That is intheradioshack@hotmail.com. And the subject is NASWA newsletter. And if you want to contact me with loggings or questions or concerns or whatever, you can use, again, intheradioshack@hotmail.com. Now, a shortwave radio listener can listen on any mixture of equipment. You don't have to have all of this equipment. I've just been collecting this stuff since 1964. I like to find these radios, and I had friends who were in the radio business that go and repair them, and they put them back to the original specifications that they were when I first got when the receiver was first made. So that's it for now. Have a blessed day, and we'll talk to you next month.